The colony ship Viridia's Hope settled gently onto the planet, now simply known as Viridia, a world that lived up to its name with breathtaking generosity. Lush, vibrant foliage painted the landscape in 1,000 shades of green, illuminated by the soft, pulsating glow of naturally bioluminescent flora. Trees pulsed with a gentle rhythm, ground mosses shimmered like scattered jewels, and delicate, vine-like growths pulsed with ethereal blues and purples. It was a verdant dream, a stark contrast to the barren, dying worlds they had left behind, a new chance for humanity. But the dream held a growing shadow. A subtle, unseen malaise had begun to creep through the colony. It wasn't loud or aggressive. It was a creeping weariness, a fog that dulled the senses and sapped energy. Medical scans showed nothing. Standard atmospheric sensors, designed to detect chemical imbalances or airborne pathogens, came up clean. Yet, human colonists complained of persistent fatigue, of feeling off. Even some of Viridia's naturally energetic fauna, like the iridescent groundhoppers, moved with a new, lethargic slowness. An invisible force was at work, silently draining the life from this vibrant world. Amidst this unsettling calm was Jax, the jester miller. He was the colony's unofficial morale officer, a communications specialist by trade, but a comedian at heart. Jax could find humor in a supply malfunction, a delayed comms relay, or even Commander Valerius's famously rigid posture. His jokes were often terrible, his stories bizarre, but his boundless energy was infectious, a much-needed antidote to the quiet anxieties of colonization. He was loved, even by the stoic commander. He was the kind of person who could make you smile, even when your rebreather was running low. Jax was especially fascinated by Viridia's glowing plants. He'd often spend his off hours in the vast hydroponics bay, or just outside the habitat's airlock, trying to talk to them. "All right, little glow friend," he'd say, tapping a shimmering vine gently. "Give us a light show. Show Jax what you got." The plant would pulse in response, and Jax would let out a delighted cackle. He swore they understood him, claiming they had a secret language of light. He even tried to teach a cluster of bioluminescent fungi to dance by flicking their caps, convinced they'd mimic his movements. His laughter often echoed through the sterile corridors, a welcome contrast to the hum of life support. But lately, Jax's light had begun to dim. His jokes, usually rapid fire, came slower, his punchlines sometimes forgotten mid-sentence. His usual boisterous laughter was replaced by a tired chuckle. He'd dismiss it with a wave of his hand. "Just the Viridian jet lag, folks. This planet's got too many good vibes. Makes me want to take a space nap." Then came the whispers. Jack started mentioning them, casually at first. "Anyone else hearing that low hum? Like 1,000 tiny lullabies? Must be the ship's old ventilation. Getting sentimental." Later, he'd describe a gentle, soothing murmur that followed him, a comforting sound that made his eyelids heavy. He'd dismiss it as fatigue, or a trick of his mind. But Dr. Aris Thorne, the colony's lead botanist and geneticist, noticed the subtle, almost imperceptible tremor in his hands, a shift in the precise rhythm of his rebreather. Aris often exchanged banter with Jax during her lab breaks, and his fading wit was a stark, alarming change. The transformation was terrifying in its gentleness. Jax simply started to drift. His movements became sluggish, his bright eyes hazy, his humor faded entirely, replaced by a serene, vacant smile. He wasn't in pain, he was just receding. One morning he didn't respond to his wake-up call. Commander Valerius, who rarely left his side, was there. Jax's eyes, though still hazy, slowly focused. He didn't speak immediately, but a faint, familiar smirk touched his lips. He was back, though perhaps forever changed by his long slumber. His recovery, slow and arduous, symbolized the colony's renewed hope. His mind, once so vibrant and full of joy, was simply gone. He was in a deep, irreversible coma. The discovery sent a chilling shockwave through the colony. Jax, the jester, their source of laughter and light, was now a silent, breathing monument to an unseen terror. His condition was unlike any known illness, baffling their medical teams. Commander Valerius, his face etched with rare grief, stared at the medical readouts, utterly desperate for answers that his sophisticated, high-tech scanners simply could not provide. The invisible threat had taken their brightest light, and it showed no signs of stopping. Utterly yes. The colony's medical bay hummed with a futile activity. Commander Valerius stood over Jax's bed, his rigid posture barely concealing a profound grief. "His vitals are stable, Commander," the chief medical officer reported, frustration lacing his voice. "But every brain scan, every neural pathway mapping comes back normal. There's no inflammation, no cellular degradation, no foreign agent detectable by any of our instruments. It's like he just decided to switch off." Valerius slammed a fist softly on a nearby console. "Normal? He's a living ghost. How can our most advanced scanners miss this? How can we even fight an enemy we can't see, can't detect?" The answer was chilling. Dr. Aris Thorne, usually found amidst the vibrant flora of her biolabs, now stood in the sterile medical bay, her face grim. "Commander, our traditional sensors are looking for abnormalities, energy signatures, chemical compounds, viral markers, bacterial growth. What if the anomaly isn't abnormal enough to register? What if it's designed to be invisible to our understanding of threat?" Aris had spent the last 48 hours in a frenzy of research, fueled by a terrifying hunch and the silent presence of Jax. She had cross-referenced every obscure alien disease report, every theoretical biological cloaking mechanism she could access. "I believe we're dealing with Somnus spore," she stated, her voice quiet but firm. "A hyperadaptive fungal growth. It doesn't invade or destroy cells directly. It subtly leaches bioelectrical energy from living organisms, inducing a profound, irreversible state of dormancy or coma. Its spores are microscopic, almost weightless, carried on the slightest breeze, and crucially, they are bioelectrically cloaked." Sparky, their resident tech expert, frowned, adjusting his comm unit. "Bioelectrically cloaked? You mean it manipulates its own energy field to blend with ambient readings? Like it makes itself look like background noise to our scanners, or it operates on a frequency our filters ignore?" "Precisely," Aris confirmed. "Our energy-based detection systems filter it out as, quote, static. Our chemical analyzers see its complex, ever-shifting organic compounds as indistinguishable from Viridia's natural flora. It's a perfect biological chameleon, constantly evolving its signature just enough to evade detection while draining its host." The soft, murmuring whispers Jax had heard were likely the low-frequency vibrations of the spores subtly interacting with his neural pathways, gently lulling him into dormancy. It was a silent, insidious invasion. Commander Valerius looked from Jax's unresponsive form to the frantic readouts. "So our best technology is useless against it. We sit here, waiting for it to take us one by one." Despair laced his voice. The thought of losing more colonists, perhaps even himself, to this unseen enemy was a burden almost too heavy to bear. "Not useless," Aris countered, her gaze sweeping across the medical bay. "Just insufficient. We need to fight fire with life." She then made a radical proposal, one that was met with skepticism and even outright disbelief by some of the colony's more traditional scientists. "We modify the local flora," she announced, "specifically, the naturally bioluminescent plants in sectors where the spore is active. We use genetic engineering to program them to act as a, quote, living biosensor grid. These plants are already incredibly sensitive to their environment. I believe we can modify their bioluminescence to react dramatically to the minute bioelectrical disruptions caused by the Somnus spore's presence. A change too subtle for our high-tech scanners, but one these plants with the right genetic trigger can perceive and display." A senior xenobiologist scoffed, crossing his arms. "You want to turn our entire ecosystem into a giant mood ring, Dr. Thorne? We're a scientific expedition, not gardeners playing with glowworms. This is pre-contact level technology." "We'd be playing with our lives, Doctor," Aris shot back, her usual calm replaced by fierce determination. "This isn't about playing. It's about utilizing the only detection method available to us. These plants already interact with their environment on a bioelectrical level. My research indicates we can enhance that. We can train them to scream danger in a way our machines can't hear, but our eyes can see. Commander Valerius remained silent for a long moment. His training, his entire career, screamed against such an unconventional, unscientific gamble. But Jax's pale face, the eerie quiet in the colony's usually bustling corridors, the absolute failure of their superior technology, what choice did he have? The threat was real, and it was taking his people. "How long?" Valerius asked, his voice raw. "To engineer the first viable plant, to test it, and to begin planting a localized grid. Weeks, maybe a month, if we have full resources," Aris replied, her gaze firm. "But the Somnus spore is spreading faster than that. We need to move immediately. And we'll need everyone who can work to help cultivate and deploy these plants." Valerius looked at the faces around him. Skepticism, fear, but also, in some eyes, a spark of the desperate hope that Aris ignited. He thought of Jax, whose laughter would never echo through the corridors again, unless they found a way to fight back. "Dr. Thorne," Valerius said, his voice regaining its command. "You have your resources. Make it happen. We will turn this planet into our eyes." As Aris began to mobilize her team, a parallel line of her research, until now a mere curiosity, gained critical importance. In her early geological surveys, she had identified a unique, pulsating bioenergetic mineral embedded deep within Viridia's crust. This mineral wasn't just rare, it seemed to be the very source of Viridia's exceptionally lush bioluminescence, subtly boosting the planet's natural energies and enhancing the resilience of its local flora against environmental stressors. Aris had theorized it could significantly amplify the power and range of her proposed biosensor grid, making the plants even more sensitive and their signals stronger. Little did she know, this very mineral was a secret that a certain alien species had been observing for cycles, a resource crucial to their own survival, which would soon bring them to Viridia's surface. Dr. Aris Thorne's lab, usually a place of quiet, focused study, transformed into a buzzing hub of desperate innovation. The urgency of Jax's comatose state fueled her every waking moment, often blurring the line between days and nights. Her team, including Sparky, whose inventive knack for making anything work with limited resources was invaluable, and Lena, the xenobotanist who was now fully committed, worked relentlessly. The shared fear, amplified by Jax's silent vigil in the medical bay, forged them into a single, determined unit. The first challenge was the genetic engineering itself. Viridia's bioluminescent plants were complex, their light a symphony of natural electrical impulses, intricately linked to the planet's unique energy. Aris had to identify the specific genetic sequences responsible for detecting minute bioelectrical disruptions, then amplify that sensitivity, and link it to a dramatic change in luminescence. This wasn't about subtle color shifts, this had to be a blinding flare, a sudden dimming, or a frantic, unmistakable pulse. If the plants were to be their eyes, they needed to scream. They focused on a common vine-like plant that grew ubiquitously across Viridia, its natural glow a soft, consistent green. Aris developed a retrovirus, a biological delivery system to introduce the modified genetic code into the plant cells. It was painstaking work, requiring sterile environments and precise temperature controls, often improvised with salvaged equipment. Sparky, ever resourceful, even configured a makeshift bioreactor from a repurposed food synthesizer, coaxing it to maintain the delicate conditions needed for the gene therapy. After what felt like an eternity of relentless work, days blending into a single focused blur, the first genetically modified plant, a small, fragile seedling, was finally ready. Aris placed it carefully in a controlled chamber, a minuscule sample of the Somnus spore, painstakingly collected and carefully contained in a bio-shielded jar, beside it. The colony held its breath, crowded around the observation screen in the lab, a silent prayer hanging in the air. For a long, tense moment, nothing happened. The plant glowed its usual soft green, an innocent light against the heavy silence. Then, a faint tremor ran through its delicate leaves. The green light wavered, flickered, then, with a sudden, startling intensity, pulsed a vivid, frantic red. It was a raw, undeniable scream of warning. A collective gasp filled the observation room, followed by a wave of relieved sighs. "It works," Lena whispered, tears shining in her eyes. "It actually works." The red pulse was unmistakable. It screamed danger. Aris quickly pulled the spore sample away. As the threat receded, the plant's light slowly faded back to its normal, peaceful green. They had done it. They had given the planet eyes. The next phase was deployment, a monumental task. Teams, working around the clock in shifts, began cultivating thousands of these genetically modified sentinel plants in the colony's hydroponics bays. Once mature enough, they were planted in strategic locations around the colony perimeter and along access routes deep into Viridia's dense jungle. The goal was to create a continuous, interconnected, living biosensor grid. As the sentinel plants rooted and grew, their faint, natural bioelectrical fields would link, forming a vast, silent network across the terrain. When a patch of Somnus spore, unseen by high-tech scanners, entered a section of the grid, the plants there would flash their frantic red, creating a visible alarm system that pinpointed the threat's location. It was a race against time, with every new red pulse a chilling reminder of the spore's relentless spread. But as the humans toiled, oblivious to anything beyond their desperate struggle, they were not alone in witnessing this strange, organic transformation. High above Viridia's lush canopy, almost invisible against the shimmering atmosphere, sleek crystalline vessels began to appear. These belonged to the Luminar, an alien species whose entire civilization was built upon a profound connection to light and bioluminescence. Their bodies were slender, composed of intricate, semi-transparent organic structures that glowed with an internal, ethereal light, shifting with their emotions and communication. Their technology was an extension of their biology, relying on advanced light manipulation and subtle energy signatures. The Luminar had been observing Viridia for cycles, drawn by its exceptionally rich, natural bioluminescence. They valued and studied such worlds, seeing them as rare celestial gems. However, their primary, unspoken interest lay deeper, the very bioenergetic mineral that pulsed within Viridia's core, the source of its extraordinary planetary glow and its flora's unique resilience. This mineral was vital for the Luminar's long-term energy needs and the continued purity of their light-based existence. Their own highly refined scanners, sophisticated beyond human comprehension, could map Viridia's energy flows and biosignatures in exquisite detail, confirming the mineral's presence. Yet even their scanners were returning anomalous readings from certain areas of the planet, faint energetic disruptions, unidentifiable blips that defied their logical categorization. They were detecting something, but their refined systems, designed to filter out natural background noise and identify distinct energy patterns, couldn't resolve this subtle, insidious threat. It was beneath their threshold of meaningful data, much like a human trying to hear a whisper in a hurricane. This anomaly was a concern, especially if it threatened their coveted mineral. They watched, with a mix of intellectual curiosity, strategic interest, and profound bewilderment, as humans began to manipulate Viridia's sacred glowing plants. They saw the modified plants pulse red, they monitored the humans' frantic movements, their deployment of these sentinel plants. To the Luminar, this was a perplexing display of primitive directness. Why were these crude beings altering the planet's natural light symphony, when their own sophisticated methods failed to understand the anomaly? Within the Luminar ranks, a subtle internal conflict simmered. The Elder Council, represented by Xylarian, was pragmatic, understanding the need for the mineral and the potential threat. But a conservative faction, led by a luminary named Arian, viewed the human actions as an affront, a clumsy interference with Viridia's elegant biological rhythm. These lesser beings defile the natural light, Arian projected during council meetings, manipulating what should be observed, not altered. Their threat is likely a consequence of their own crude interference. They didn't yet understand the desperate ingenuity born of an unseen enemy, nor the extent to which that enemy threatened even their perfect, light-based existence. But the accelerating spread of the anomalous blips, now visibly correlated with the humans' red alarms, forced Xylarian's hand. The forest of Viridia began to change, subtly at first, then with increasing brilliance. Thousands of genetically modified sentinel plants, meticulously cultivated and carefully placed, started to take root across the planet's surface. Aris's engineering expertise proved invaluable, designing deployment patterns that ensured maximum coverage and minimal energy drain from the delicate root systems. Lena and her team tirelessly monitored the plant's health, ensuring their intricate bioelectrical pathways connected seamlessly, forming a nascent, living intelligence. As the grid grew, so did its capabilities. The plants weren't just simple on/off switches for danger. Aris had programmed them to communicate complex data through their luminescence. A slow, rhythmic pulse of deep red indicated a distant, low-concentration presence of the somnus spore. A rapid, frantic flicker of an angry orange meant an immediate, high-concentration threat nearby. Different hues and patterns could even indicate the direction of the spore's movement, creating a shimmering, organic map of the unseen enemy. The entire jungle was transforming into a vast, living neural network, its light a symphony of warnings. The Luminar, hovering in their crystalline vessels, observed with growing fascination and a touch of alarm. Their own advanced scanners, while still unable to precisely identify the somnus spore, now detected complex, organized bioelectrical patterns emerging from Viridia's surface, patterns directly correlating with the humans' frantic, primitive activities. They watched, spellbound, as a wave of crimson light would ripple across the forest, followed by human teams rushing to a specific location, seemingly guided by nothing more than the plant's glow. This was beyond their understanding, yet undeniably effective. This bewildering display, coupled with the escalating anomaly readings from the spore, forced Xylarian, the Luminar Elder, to act. A Luminar vessel descended from the sky, its usual serene glow replaced by a more intense, querying pulse. They initiated direct, multi-frequency contact with Commander Valerius and Dr. Aris Thorne. "We have observed your unconventional methods," Xylarian projected, its voice now tinged with less condescension and more genuine confusion. "Your flora now signals with intent. Our systems confirm an anomaly, yet your methods provide specificity. Explain this living grid." Aris, with the urgency born of Jax's comatose state, laid out the grim truth of the somnus spore and the catastrophic failure of conventional high-tech detection against its bioelectrical cloaking. She explained how their desperate gamble had turned the very life of Viridia into their eyes. She also cautiously shared her findings about the bioenergetic mineral within Viridia's core, theorizing its role in the planet's natural resilience. Xylarian's internal light flickered, a sign of deep distress within their light-based communication. "The anomaly, the somnus spore you name. We have detected similar disruptions. It affects bioluminescence." Xylarian then revealed the Luminar's own vulnerability. Their entire biology and communication relied on intricate light patterns. If the somnus spore spread unchecked, it could disrupt their own vital bioluminescence, rendering them deaf, blind, and ultimately destroying their very essence. Their perfect, light-based existence was at stake. Xylarian then subtly shifted the conversation. "The bioenergetic mineral you speak of, it has properties that could stabilize and purify our own light conduits, especially if we face such a pervasive disruption. Containing this spore would secure access to that vital resource, benefiting both our species." The truth of their long-standing interest in the mineral, though now presented as a shared solution, hung unspoken in the air. Meanwhile, the somnus spore, displaying a terrifyingly advanced collective intelligence, began to escalate its insidious game. It was no longer a mindless contagion. It was learning, adapting, and countering. Filled circle mimicry. As the sentinel plants flared red, some clusters of the whispering moss would subtly alter their own bioelectrical signatures, attempting to mimic the natural background hum of healthy Viridian flora, or even the faint, safe glow of a new sentinel plant. This caused momentary confusion within the human teams, triggering false negatives on their enhanced visual scanners. Filled circle jamming, the spore began to emit specific, low-frequency hums and vibrations, the very whispers Jax had heard, designed to actively jam the plant's delicate bioelectrical signals. This caused patches of the grid to flicker erratically, displaying false alarms or simply going dark, creating blind spots in their vital warning system. Filled Circle targeted overwhelm. It concentrated its spread with alarming precision, rapidly overwhelming isolated sentinel plant clusters before they could fully bloom into a warning, effectively cutting off early detection points. However, as the Somnus spore evolved, Viridia itself began to subtly react. From deep within the planet's core, amplified by the bioenergetic mineral Aris had identified, the planet began to emit low-level, resonant frequencies. These frequencies, while not directly harming the spore, subtly disrupted its bioelectrical cloaking, making it infinitesimally easier for Aris to refine the plant's sensitivity further, allowing them to pierce through the spore's mimicry and jamming attempts. This slow, almost imperceptible planetary response, a fundamental defense mechanism activated by the pervasive threat, provided a crucial, underlying advantage in the escalating biological chess match. Humans, guided by the increasingly complex language of the living grid, could now pinpoint areas of high spore concentration. They used specialized sonic disruptors, tuned to frequencies that disoriented the spore, or contained burns in small targeted zones. But the spore was adaptive, learning, and finding new pathways. The battle was far from over. It was escalating, and both species now understood the profound, shared threat. The Luminar, who once sought to transcend planetary life, now found themselves facing an enemy that only the planet itself, through human ingenuity, could truly perceive and, with their combined efforts, fight. The fate of two species, and of Viridia itself, hung in the balance. The alliance between humans and Luminar, forged in the crucible of a shared, unseen enemy, blossomed rapidly. The Luminar, who once saw only crude, primitive methods, now viewed Dr. Aris Thorne's living grid with profound awe. Their own advanced scanners, previously blind to the Somnus spore's cloaking, could now be recalibrated to interpret the subtle, unique bioelectrical disruptions the modified plants detected. Luminar engineers seamlessly integrated their sophisticated light amplification technology with the sentinel plants. This allowed the plants' warning signals to propagate further, faster, and with stunning clarity, transforming the entire jungle into a colossal, shimmering, real-time map of danger. The full biosensor grid was a breathtaking spectacle, a vibrant testament to organic and technological synergy. When a wave of Somnus spore approached, the vast canopy would erupt in a breathtaking cascading display of crimson and orange light, a silent scream of warning visible for miles. Different sections pulsed with specific rhythms, guiding human ground teams with pinpoint accuracy. The Luminar, in their now more stable, energy-efficient vessels, used their refined manipulators to deploy targeted sonic disruptors that precisely counteracted the spore's bioelectrical field, forcing it into temporary dormancy. Humans, guided by the plant's light, followed up with contained burn protocols in small, highly localized zones, preventing further spread. The Somnus spore, faced with this unified organic technological defense, adapted, but struggled. It attempted to mimic the natural glow of the plants, but the Luminar's enhanced detection, now guided by the plant's core bioelectrical truth and Viridia's subtle planetary frequencies, could differentiate the genuine warning from the mimicry. The invisible enemy was finally losing its cloak, its attempts to jam the grid proving futile against the combined might of natural and artificial intelligence. The constant, low-level resonant frequencies emanating from Viridia's bioenergetic mineral deposits worked tirelessly beneath the surface, subtly weakening the spore's cloaking mechanism and enhancing the plant's resilience. It was as if the planet itself was breathing a sigh of relief, actively assisting its defenders. The shared fight against the Somnus spore led to a deeper understanding between humans and Luminar. The Luminar, who had spent millennia floating above planetary surfaces, learned the invaluable lesson of adaptability and integration. They witnessed humanity's raw resilience, their deep connection to the natural world, and their capacity for unconventional thought. In turn, humans gained a profound respect for the elegance and power of the Luminar's advanced technology when applied with a new, more holistic understanding. They saw how technology, when harmonized with nature, could achieve far more than it could in isolation. The threat of the Somnus spore was eventually contained. It wasn't eliminated. Aris explained that such an adaptive organism might never be fully eradicated, but it was now managed. The living biosensor grid remained active, a constant, beautiful guardian over Viridia, its lights a gentle reminder of the constant vigilance required. In the medical bay, the slow, imperceptible change continued. Jax, the jester, had been in a coma for what felt like an eternity. But with the Somnus spore contained, the minute, constant drain on his bioelectrical energy ceased. Weeks turned into months. One day, a faint tremor ran through his hand. Then, his eyelids fluttered. Commander Valerius, who rarely left his side, was there. Jax's eyes, though still hazy, slowly focused. He didn't speak immediately, but a faint, familiar smirk touched his lips. He was back. Mill. But Jax was different. He rarely told jokes anymore. His humor, when it appeared, was laced with a strange, almost poetic understanding of the plant's light. He would often stare at the sentinel plants, his head tilted, claiming he could feel their silent anxieties, their warnings. He wasn't just observing the light, he was interpreting its complex whispers in a way no one else could, almost like a living conduit to the grid's raw data. Aris theorized the Somnus spore, in its parasitic occupation, had subtly rewired his neural pathways, granting him an unparalleled, albeit unconventional link to Viridia's bioelectrical network. He was a living paradox, a victim who had become a unique asset, a bridge between two forms of intelligence. He spoke of the whispers as a complex flowing language he was only just beginning to grasp. Viridia transformed. It was no longer just a colony, but a living testament to interspecies collaboration. The Luminar established permanent, ground-integrated research outposts, their shimmering structures now gently intertwined with the giant trees, learning to live with the planet's life, not just above it. Their advanced technology was used to enhance Viridia's natural ecosystems, fostering even greater bioluminescence and resilience. The bioenergetic mineral was no longer a secret, nor a singular Luminar ambition. It became a shared resource, carefully managed sustainably by both species for mutual benefit and, crucially, for Viridia's long-term health. The Luminar's initial hidden agenda had evolved into a true partnership. Dr. Aris Thorne, now revered by both species, often walked among the glowing sentinel plants. He would pause by a cluster, watching its gentle pulse, sometimes joined by Jax, who would offer cryptic, yet eerily accurate insights into the grid's feelings. Commander Valerius, his face softened by the trials they had faced, no longer relied solely on cold data, but learned to read the language of light, and even listened to Jax's strange new wisdom. The once primitive solution had become the core of their survival, a profound new philosophy that true advancement lies not in conquering nature, but in understanding and working in harmony with its boundless wisdom. Viridia, the planet of living light, shone brighter than ever, a beacon of hope for a galaxy learning to listen to the whispers of life.